You are listening to the Marriage Clinic Podcast, a podcast on love, marriage, and personal development. Our purpose is to inspire and equip you with knowledge and skills to enable you to have lasting and fulfilling relationships. Now your host, Joshua Mulgrew.
Hello. We are back with our Marriage Clinic Podcast. This is season 2. And it's a great thing to always be here with you. Last week, you guys shared the link. You posted it in different places. And we really got a lot of views and listens. And we are truly grateful. My name is Dr. Joshua Mulgrew, but I prefer if you call me Uncle Josh. And this is the Marriage Clinic Podcast, a podcast about love, marriage, and your personal development. We've been doing this for the best part of 2 years, so we keep bringing the podcast to you, and I'm really so glad that you are a part of it. So let's jump in. Last week, I spoke about, first, we are looking at long-distance relationships, and then we spoke about the whole concept of long-distance relationships. Then we've gone into looking at long-distance relationships when you are not married. So probably you are a boyfriend and a girlfriend. That's what we did last week. But today, I want us to look at navigating long-distance marriage or long-distance marriages. When you are married and your husband has to live in one city and you have to live across the globe, or in a different city or in a different town, how do you manage it? But as we normally do, I give you an interesting scripture for the day. All right? Or for the week. This one is interesting. When I found it, I didn't even know it was in the Bible. And when I found it, I was laughing and I was saying, hey, I should share this with the Marriage Clinic Podcast Click. Deuteronomy 20 verse 7. Deuteronomy 20 verse 7. Now listen to this. It says, has anyone here just been engaged to a woman but not yet married? They are talking to warriors. Well, you may go home and get married. You might die in battle and someone else will marry her. I was like, whoa. So this was a statement that was made. You're about to go into battle and they say, look, if you've engaged a woman and you've not yet married her, please don't come fight with us because you may get killed and someone else will take her. So that's in Deuteronomy 20 verse 7. Anyway, so let's jump into it. When we talk about a long distance marriage, a long distance marriage is where the husband and wife are geographically separated. This is a geography issue. They are geographically separated and do not have regular physical contact. They can't touch each other. This may be for a brief period or for an extended arrangement. So maybe you're listening to this right now and your husband is deployed with the army and he's serving somewhere under deployment and he has to be away for a year. That's a long distance marriage. Maybe your husband has to do 6 months away offshore and then 6 months on land. Maybe he's a marine engineer or something of sorts, and maybe he's working on a rig, or maybe he just has a job in another city. Maybe he lives in Accra and you live in Lagos, or maybe he lives in Tamale and you live in Yendi or Bunkurgu, or so for various reasons, a husband and wife can find themselves in a situation where they do not see each other physically on a daily basis. It is not ideal. Let's remember that. It's not ideal. It's not good for a marriage, but you need to make it work if there's no way around it. So we are looking at navigating a long distance marriage. Now, if you have a friend who is in a long distance marriage, maybe her husband doesn't live with her or his wife is not with him, please do share this link with the person. Please do share this link with the person. Let them share this podcast with the person. Let them listen, because this week and next week, I'm going to be giving some nuggets, some bars, some very good information that's going to help them. Okay. So it brings me to, so let's keep looking at it. So your question may be, Uncle Josh, but if he's earning so much money there, or I'm going to be earning so much money there, for the sake of the family, isn't it good enough? Let me talk to you about some of the challenges first. The first challenge you're going to face is lack of physical intimacy. Lack of physical intimacy. Your frequency of physical intimacy increases when you live in the same building, same house. You come home to each other. You get to hug. You get to have sex. You get to kiss. You get to help each other in the kitchen. You get to run around the house. But when you have a long distance marriage, there's lack of physical intimacy. Being physically apart can make it difficult for couples to maintain a strong connection, including, and most importantly, sexual intimacy. So, pardon my French, but when you have a sexual urge and you're 2,000 miles away, what do? As a married couple, it's one thing when you're not married because you are already cued into managing those things. But when you are married, when you've seen the promised land and you know what the promised land is like, it's much more difficult. So that's the first challenge you're going to be facing. The next challenge you're going to be facing is communication. Communication. You see, without face-to-face interactions, it's difficult to communicate, and the communication can be strained because there are a lot of things that your facial expression, your body language, the tone of voice carries a lot more weight in the communication. So when it's a situation where you are communicating over the phone or over a screen, it affects it. Now, the time difference, and this for those who live in different time zones. Now, if you live in different time zones, coordinating schedules can be a challenge. I find it interesting in the brief periods where my wife has to be away. Sometimes it's morning and it's night, or it's night for me and it's morning. And sometimes even the energy you are bringing, it's in the morning, you have a lot of energy, but for the other person, it's in the evening. They've had a long day. All they want to do is rest. So the time difference begins to place a strain on the marriage where you live in different time zones. Okay? Where you live in different time zones. Then that brings me to the next one. You will have a feeling of being disconnected. There's this feeling of being disconnected from your spouse because you are not spending regular time together. So you may feel disconnected from each other and you may have a harder time building and maintaining that emotional connection because the person is not there with you. There's something about being around each other that just helps. Then there's the difficulty of there's also the financial strain. I know people say, well, I'm going to work out of town because the money is good. But when you do the actual calculation of how much money you are spending, a lot of the time, you are either not making as much as you thought you are, or you are even running at a loss. Let me explain. Let's say there's a guy called Peter. And let's say Peter is married to Janet. All right? And let's say Janet gets a job offer that has to take her out of town. So maybe she's working in town and she's earning X amount. Now, what she's going to earn is going to be double what she has now. So she decides to take the job. They are living apart. It is double, but now it's double the expenses because you now have to rent a place. Peter needs to rent a place. Janet needs to rent a place. Peter needs to pay an electricity bill. Janet needs to pay an electricity bill. Peter needs a fridge. Janet needs a fridge. A stove. All right? So that's the first part. You are now maintaining 2 homes instead of 1 home. And then the next thing that happens is that your communication bills go up, and your commute, whenever you have to travel, it's more expensive to go across. So sometimes when you finally crunch just the numbers and do the subtractions and the additions, she is not actually getting 2 times her salary. She probably is getting 80% of her salary now, or maybe 120%. Don't quote me on the math here, because I can just see the math people taking their calculator. Well, Uncle Josh, you see, if you are saying 120%, my sister, please, this is relationship class. It no be math class. You get what I'm trying to say. So remember that it brings a financial strain. Then there's a difficulty in building a life together. It's difficult to build a shared life when you are living in 2 separate places. Then there's social isolation. There's social isolation. Living apart can lead to the feelings of social isolation and a lack of that support system that your family brings, especially when one person has to travel. I was talking to a friend who's had to travel for school, and I asked her, I said, how are you doing? How does it feel being away from the husband and the kids? She said, it's hell. She said, I just can't wait to be back with them because I miss them. And whenever I close from lectures, I'm sitting in my room. So sometimes being apart brings about that issue of social isolation. And then it also brings us to another important issue, which is conception of children can sometimes be a problem. Mind you, there's just a couple of days each week, each month, that you can get pregnant. Okay, there's a couple of days each month you can get pregnant. So if you are together and you want to have a child, in the year you have 12 chances. If you are living apart and you are meeting each other once a quarter, once in 3 months, you have 4 chances. Now, in those 4 chances, there's no guarantee that you are going to be around each other when she's fertile. Because a woman is not fertile every single day of the month. So what happens? He comes, she's probably at the end of her ovulation, or probably she's just about to have a period, or it's not working. Even though they may be having sex, there's no guarantee that they will be able to have kids. So what happens is you begin to feel that pressure of, the child is not coming. The child is not coming. One lady spoke with her husband. She said this interesting thing. She told her husband this thing. She said, I've noticed that anytime you get leave to come, I'm not ovulating. You always come at the end, even because you have to apply for approval too. So it creates a problem for married couples when they are trying to have kids. Now, all these things I have said, we are assuming this couple does not have children. The moment the couple have children, the dynamics change. All right? When you have children and it's a long distance marriage, I now want to tell you about some of the challenges the children begin to face because of you being away. Number one is you have to parent from a distance. When parents are living apart, they may find it challenging to effectively co-parent and make important decisions. When the children are home from school, it's dawn where you are. So you're either waking up at 3 a.m. to help the children with their homework, or your wife that has the kids is going to have to cope with that. So parenting from a distance is a challenge. And there's also the emotional impact. A child needs a father and a mother in the same location to grow well. Look, there are things my wife will say several times and the kids, they react slowly. And they just need to hear me ask her a question. Who is misbehaving? Sanity comes. There are times I get home and I look at my wife and I'm like, you're tired. Hey, kids, let's go to the kitchen. I'm fixing the meal today. So I do the fixing of the meal because she's had a rough day. When only one parent is with the children, they don't get that benefit. Okay? Then there's a difficulty in maintaining a routine with your children. Distance. There's a strain on the parent-child relationship because it's either you are only interacting with the child to correct mistakes or you are only the good guy because you've come home for 3 days and you don't want to use your 3 days to be caning children, to be shouting at them, to be doing A, B, C, D. So you are focusing on just being the good person for those 3 days. And then the other partner has to be the bad person. So it puts a strain there. And then there's limited quality time with these children. Because you are not there all the time, or the parent who is away is not there all the time. And that also causes a financial strain. Because either you have to travel in, or if they are traveling to come see you, now you have to buy a bus ticket or a plane ticket or a taxi fare for each and every child, and it is expensive just to go see daddy. We're going to visit daddy. You have to buy 4 plane tickets. That's if you have 3 kids. If you have 4 kids, that's what? 5 plane tickets. So, these are some of the things you need to understand as you make a decision to have a long distance marriage. Next week, I'm going to come in with some solutions. It's not all gloom and doom. It's not like a marriage cannot work if we are living apart. No. Next week, I'm going to come in with some good information that is going to help you manage the situation. But for this week, let's just settle on this. And then we'll take it from next week. So, we'll have to take Ask Uncle Josh now. We'll be back with Ask Uncle Josh. Okay. So today's question is interesting. I'm sure it's a lady who sent this in, but the person is trying to mask herself. She says, Uncle Josh, do we have a particular person who is your Mr. or Mrs. Right? Do we have a particular person who is your Mr. or Mrs. Right? Because of time, I'll give you a very short answer. Mr. and Mrs. Right are dead. They are dead. They are buried. They are in the grave. There's no Mrs. Right and there's no Mr. Right. But there's a pool of people that you would do better married to. All right? The Bible says that he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. It doesn't say he who finds the wife. The wife means there's a specific. Now, if you believe that there's only one Mr. Right for you, how about people who lose their spouses and remarry? Okay? How about those who get divorced and remarry? So, you need to understand that there are some kinds of people, I suspect it's a lady, there are some kinds of men that are good for you. What you need to know is know your temperament, know what you want out of life, where you are going in life. And when you meet men that suit it, go ahead. And if probably you're asking this question because you are in a relationship and you want to break up and you're afraid, if I leave him, I'll not find someone like him. It's a lie. You'll find someone like him. So go ahead and leave him. Anyway, so this has been the Marriage Clinic podcast, a podcast about love, marriage, and personal development. And it has been your very lovely Uncle Josh that has been here with you. Keep spreading the word, keep sharing with people. Let's get this information out here. And next week, I'll be back with solutions to long distance marriages. Take care. Love you all. Bye-bye.